Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second in a series of live reading events from Grenada. We dubbed this one A Collection of Spice. My name is David Ambrose. I use the pen name D.E. Ambrose for my books. So, welcome all viewers, welcome panelists. We have today 4 writers from Grenada, from the Spice Isle, joining me. And let me introduce each of the panelists. And we come from different parts of Grenada. So from St. Patrick's, Judy Antoine. From St. Andrew, Maureen St. Clair. From Carriacou, Jeffrey Isaac. And from St. George's, actually the town of St. George, Colson Maturin. And I am from the parish of St. George, St. Paul's to be exact. So we're here again to share our writings, to discuss things about literary nature. So I hope you enjoy people who are from all over the world. Hope you enjoy our poetry, our prose. Some of us, we do poetry, and some of us, we write prose. Some do both. But we don't want to waste too much time. We want to get right into it. I know we have an exciting package for you this evening. We had a thunderstorm earlier today, but that's past. We almost had a cardiac because the power went, obviously the internet as well, but it came back in time for us to hold today's event. So without any further ado, this is what's going to happen. I'm not going to moderate. We know our order. Jeffrey will begin, then Maureen, then Colson, then Judy, and I will pick up the rear. We're going to do 2 rounds. And we'll take no more than 5 minutes for our actual presentations. But each person will present himself or herself before they present in this first round. So let's get right into it. And then the presenter, at the end of his or her presentation, will pass the baton to the next person. Jeffrey, the floor is yours.
Thank you, David. So, hi everyone. My name is Jeffrey Isaac. I am from Carriacou, and I write poetry, some of which I've self-published. I have a book, She Spawned, that was released last week. If you are into that sort of thing and you're into Facebook and you want to check something out with the work that I do and some work from Carriacou, there's a page, Poetic Duty, 13 square miles, Poetic Duty, so you can access some things there. In terms of buying the book, the latest, She Spawned, it's available on Amazon, on authorhouse.com and BookMag. So at least those 3 platforms, the book can be obtained there. So what I'll do is I'll start reading a series of elegies, and I'll talk a bit about them before I begin. The first, when I went to National College in Grenada, I think before I actually got to National College, I would have read Maurice Patterson. And so when I got there, Maurice Patterson would be sitting on the carronade by the colonnade, not far removed from the Christ the Deep statue, I think it is called. So Maurice would sit there, and often he would be dressed with a long-sleeved army jacket. Of course, I wanted to speak with the man, having read his books and admiring him from a distance. It never really happened, though. The closest I got was the hello. It's not that Maurice was aloof in any way. It might have been that Maurice just occupied his own world. Anyway, I've been working on this project for a few years now. And because I had to access Maurice's books as resource material, and I revisited the manuscript just this year, and I thought it's appropriate really to write something about Maurice, given that I use his work as point of reference. So the first elegy is for Maurice Patterson. sentinel. A sentinel on the cul-de-sac of the Carnage. The writer retreats into the bastion of his cranium. From this secret location, reviewing the passengers disembarking, passing, cargo, auxiliary, steam, ships sailing across the town's horizon. The sea comes in, then withdraws again, and he remains unmoved, cloaked in his battle fatigues, bullets of ink spraying from the barrel of his high caliber weapon. A one-man army triggers the history of the revolution. The second in the series is for John Barber Gabriel, and most people knew Barber as a businessman from Carriacou. But Barber, before all that, he was a school teacher. He wrote poetry, and he was a farmer as well. Now, Barber died suddenly in maybe 2018. Anyway, before he died, a few months before, I had an extended conversation with him. And one of the stories he told me was how he solicited the help of a family member so as not to serve as a PRA in the People's Revolutionary Army. So this was written for him, Baba, John Gabriel. Oh God, cause I can't make it. Give me 1 week communications and logistics. If the antenna break and the signal escape in a heartbeat, I still wouldn't make it with gun-toting business. Cause, comrade, is fear, afraid, you hear? Trying to make your aunt, my mother, weep. God bless you for the discharge slip. And the final. Now, the first time I heard a poem about Strawn Philip, it was a poem by Nigel de Gale, 21 Gun Salute. Of course, those of you who know Nigel, he's the principal at Heinze. And Nigel and I, we were compatriots. We were in the same group and practicing poets, if you will. So this poem is called Strawn Philip, and the epigraph is an excerpt from the speech given by then Prime Minister Maurice Bishop on the day in question, the 19th of June, 1980, Strawn Philip. All security forces went to arrest Strawn Philip tonight, and they were greeted with a hail of bullets, gunfire all over the place. All soldiers, all security forces had to duck and run for their lives at first, and then, of course, they fought back. What they was doing was killing a man. What? You thought it was a shakedown from some mongoose gang? Well, you was wrong. For Strawn they come, well armed, bullet to bullet, gun to gun, he must fall down. Long live the revolution. So that's it for me as an introduction. I think Colson is the next man up. So Colson, over to you, bro.
Reading.
So am I up or Colson's up or how's that?
I think it's Maureen's turn.
Okay, okay.
So I'm sorry about that, Maureen. It is indeed you.
I just want to make sure.
That's disorder, eh?
Not at all. Yeah, so my name's Maureen St. Clair, and I've been in Grenada for 30 years. And so I'm originally from Canada and married into the culture, married into the community, and just want to big up Hartford Village because that's where I've been living for many years, and a lot of my inspiration comes from Hartford Village and also from my family, Tio, St. Clair, and Maya. I'm a writer, artist, activist, community facilitator, and co-founder of the Grenada Listening Project, which you'll hear more about in my next read. And I've written a novel called Big Island Small, and it was published in Canada and it won a couple awards, Beacon Social Justice Award and the Atlantic Writers Award. So I'm just kind of bigging myself up a little bit. And I'm just going to read you a piece. The book is fictional in terms of it's Grenada, Canada, but it's fictional Grenada, fictional Canada. Small Island is Grenada and Big Island is Grenada. Big Island is Canada. And it's two young women in their early 20s that meet, that are both from Small Island, but they meet on Big Island. And they're trying to figure each other out because they both come from different race. There's a fair-skinned Black woman and a Black woman, and both have, you know, one has privilege, the other doesn't, so different class background. And so, yeah, they're just trying to figure each other out. So I'm just gonna read a piece, and it's Sola, and they're on their way to a fair in Big Island, and you'll just get an indication of their relationship. We walk to the fairgrounds in silence until Judith says we're supposed to meet, it's fate. Maybe we're supposed to argue too, who knows? Only Jah know. She doesn't see my eyes roll up. She doesn't hear the beginnings of a stoops from my tongue, sucking my teeth. Instead, I ask her if her dad is Black. This time, she doesn't take offense. Instead, she says, he Black, but he think he's red. We both laugh. I can hear Dalma telling Shai, Sola takes she color from she father, as if she has to make that clear from the beginning, as though her red brown is superior to my Black brown. You sure didn't take much from your dad, maybe your mom, I say. I got my nose, my eyes, my height, my hair, my walk, my build from Fabian's side. I got everything else from mom, fair skin and all. He speaks with the curve of defeat in her shoulders. The crowd gets denser as we reach closer to the fairground, the heat, a slow haze sliding across the pavement, thick air circling, maple trees in a slump, cedars exhausted with all the weight, parents wishing they could turn back to air conditioners, kids skipping along sidewalks, anticipating sticky popcorn, fast rides, and neon stuffed prizes. I want to find shade, preferably under a small island tree like a yellow pui or a skin up or any of the large mango trees in the village. I want to introduce Judith to Mikey and Mate, to some of the boys on the block like Frankie, Billy, and the rest of the crew. I want her to meet Samuel so they can laugh at the hypocrisies of Big Island. Samuel, who was beat up so bad on Big Island, they had to send him home to catch up his memory so he could unscrabble the part of his brain kicked by two men who found him and his lover in an alley behind a club. I loved Samuel. I didn't care what he was up to behind bushes or who he loved or how he chose to spend his time up the road, which was usually on the other end of a skipping rope, laughing and telling us girls to keep jumping and why you stop. When Samuel demonstrated he was as graceful as a Spanish dancer, we girls squealed with delight and begged him to show us more moves underneath the giant wave of a rope. I want to take Judith to school and let Mr. Jessamy question her ancestors. I even want Thompson to meet her so he can make some kind of inappropriate comment like, Sola, you're making friends with hippies now. I want Judith to come with me down by the river. I'll lead her through the hole in the bush by the side of Mr. Lloyd's shop. Tell her to watch out for the mango roots. Watch her expression when she first glimpses the ancient stones, the hauntingly beautiful faces peering from boulders, sitting half in, half out of the water, the primordial people keeping watch, protecting sacred grounds. The roller coaster catches my attention the minute we walk up and over the bridge, the monstrous knot rolling onto itself, people screaming, swirling upside down. The bridge is packed, people of all ages except the elderly, not like back home where elders are part of everything from reggae shows to harvest fairs to barbecue and cricket games. It makes sense though, who over 60 would be interested in knotting up their kidneys or making their bladders swing side to side, or filling their stomachs with gobs of candy and greasy pogo sticks. I'm just gonna read when they're on the roller coaster. So Sola says, I'm not going on any damn roller coaster. I say, and then the bar snaps into place. We climb the unsteady track. I can't believe you talked me into this. I say, watching others get snapped in too. We are not made for hanging upside down, Judith, damn. We start moving slowly. The crackling hum from the tracks matches my own breath. A mad string of words, barely audible, squeezed through clenched teeth. How did I let her talk me into this? Judith grabs my hand, telling me to hold tight. I swat her hand, but then seize it again with the first whirl down the tracks. Judith and I screaming, our knuckles bulging, balancing on the bar, eyes clenched tight, wind tears crawling down our cheeks. The swoosh of air wipes them away. While climbing the second track upwards, I start cursing like Mr. Bell, the man who owns the rum shop up the road from Thompson. Mother this and mother that come flying out of my mouth as we take another swoosh, hung upside down, milliseconds before flying into the next gigantic loop. A whole marching band of small island curse words come sailing and swirling from my lips, and I feel a gush of wind rock my belly into my toes and back up into my roaring, bellowing self. Anticipating the next rush, I grab Judith's hand and pull both our arms up and over our heads while we scream and curse and bellow some more. I'll leave it there.
It's my turn, Paula. Y'all. It's my turn, right?
Go ahead. Oh, you're on mute, Colson.
You hearing me now? Are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you now. You're back on mute.
Are you hearing me?
Right, yes.
I didn't touch anything, so I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Carlson Maturin. I am from the city of St. George. I have not shared my work very much because I believe I haven't had the exposure to do so. And I would pick things from the society to write about. So it should be relatable to an extent, I would like to believe. Some of them are not very long. I don't know if I would be able to occupy the 5 minutes that we would have, or is allotted to each of us. And I hope I do justice to the pieces. I hope that y'all will be able to enjoy it as well. I don't quite know what else to say about myself because I'm very popular at being unpopular, I should say. Maybe that's about it. So maybe I should get into the piece. This one speaks to social issues, something that happened here in Grenada. So those of you who can recollect may be able to or know what I'm talking about. Okay, here it goes. My God, the system we have is very corrupt. People go into jail for 2 coconuts, while pedophiles and nasty perverts walking out free in front of their hurt. This is nuts. How could we talk about justice if we don't even know what being just is first? If it's their family, to get a sentence, they're moving heaven and earth. But poor people children, they're treating like dirt. Do you mean to tell me $600 is all an offense like that is worth? That is like a slap in the face and saying hard luck. Even the court got a bigger cut. But I swear to God, anybody touch my children and feel them up, I'm mashing them up. The police could come. I don't give a shit. I leave them with them behind on the truck because no one cannot trust a system that is broken or doesn't even work. The people who are responsible should be locked up. Thank you very much. That's that piece. Is everyone hearing me?
Yes, thank you. Nice.
All right.
Judy next. Oh, you're on mute, Judy.
Yes. So my name is Judy Antoine. I was born and grew up in Chantimel. And I went to convent in Grenville and convent in St. George's and also National College before I did the rest of my growing up in New York City. Eventually, I got a bachelor's degree in English from the University of Hawaii in Honolulu, and I got a master's degree in arts and healing from Lesley University. I am a director of the children's performing group called Ashanti Footprints. We have a page on Facebook, and on YouTube, we have a video called Send a Message. So you can check out Ashanti Footprints on Facebook and Send a Message on YouTube. My writing journey has led me to currently be a production assistant working on documentary films and videos, writing scripts. But as far as primary school in Chantimel, I remember, writing letters, cutting out comics from newspapers. My father punishing me by telling me, go in a corner and read a book, and being very happy to go in a corner and read a book. And I really started sharing my writing when I was in Hawaii, when I wrote for the newspaper. And some of the articles that I wrote can be found on the website Kaleo o Hawaii, if you search for my name, Judy Antwine. I'm working on my first novel, and what I'm going to share today is a piece from the first manuscript that I did, that I haven't really shared with many people. And I'm also going to share a piece from some short stories that I've been working on. So the first piece is called Turn Around, Bright Eyes. What the hell wrong with you? My sister screamed. The bus driver sped around another bend and we sailed down the hill. I squeezed my eyes shut and kept them covered with my fist as we rumbled over the wooden bridge across the river. We might collapse the bridge, I thought, falling down and bouncing off the huge boulders into the water, now brown because of rain in the mountains. Mullet, giant crayfish, and suckstone would surely eat our bodies. You want to kill us too? With my eyes, I saw her, lying quietly with her hands folded onto her chest, her lips tightly sealed. Little girls like myself wearing our school uniform with clean white socks and white shoes filed past her coffin. That Gemma Belma was a pretty girl who spoke her mind. People listened and we believed we could make a change. The church rocked back and forth with sobs and moans. Amidst the smoke from the burning frankincense and myrrh, black dresses filled the church with shadows. White handkerchiefs waved in the air, while heads nodded to the hymns sung by the choir and prayers offered by the priest. Mothers and fathers hugged each other, children by their sides. Schoolgirls in their uniforms sat in pews, silently questioning the death of a star. Our bus made it over the loose boards on the bridge, and a song played on the radio. I held on to my sister's hand. Turn around, every now and then I get a little bit lonely and you're never coming round. Turn around, every now and then I get a little bit tired of listening to the sound of my tears. All I could think of was the funeral we were coming from. I knew her from around school, one of the older girls, popular and bright. I hope to someday be an older girl like Gemma and my sister and all the older girls and women who had something special about themselves. After Gemma and others had organized one of the protests that began with school children in Grenville, she had gone to the big demonstration in St. George's to free Bishop, the one that Daddy didn't want my sister going to. People said Gemma was shot after attempting to give a drink to Maurice Bishop, a glass of water, shot in the head. Every now and then I get a little bit terrified and then I see the look in your eyes. Turn around, bright eyes. Every now and then I fall apart. We were a bunch of terrified school children on a bus that seemed to be flying through the night. Gemma's bright eyes no longer burned with the fires of freedom. Lying in her coffin, her hair neatly combed, her convent uniform well pressed, creased tan sleeves, and even brown pleats. Hail Marys and All Fathers would not bring her back. Precious Lord, take my hand and let me get home so I could sleep in my bed and I won't pee bed anymore, and maybe they won't kill any more school children and people won't stumble over each other and jump over cliffs running from bullets shot from AKs in brown hands, and we won't be afraid and no one else will die. Dust had been scattered on the coffin and beautiful flowers heaped on the rising mound. The night was dark and the moon wasn't shining, and Bonnie Tyler sang, "Once upon a time I was falling in love, but now I'm only falling apart. Nothing I can do but total eclipse of the heart." That was Turn Around, Bright Eyes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Judy. I guess it's my turn now. So once again, good evening to everybody. My name is David Ambrose, and I use the pen name D.E. Ambrose because a few years ago, I did some research to see if there's any other writer, or any writer, in fact, any author with the name David Ambrose. And I found one. So I said, no, let me try to use something that nobody else is using. So I had to settle for my initials. I have 3 books that I've published so far. In 2015, I published White Spice, which is a crime thriller, crime fiction set in Grenada. At least when I published it, it was fiction. And then in 2018, I published That Time in Bogles, which takes the reader on a journey to Carriacou and hopefully will endear the reader to the culture and lifestyle of the people of Carriacou in the 1980s. And in December of 2019, I published a short story, Zone 1. This one follows a motor officer as he patrols the Grandance main road on a Christmas Eve. Funny enough, I was looking at a video. I was on social media, I think it was last week, with a motor officer from the RGPF, the Royal Grenada Police Force. And I had to laugh because I flashed back to my scenes in Zone 1. So I am a lecturer at the T.A. Marischal Community College. This is my 12th year at the college as a lecturer. I've been in the field of education for over 25 years. And I started writing a long time ago, but I only started publishing in 2015. I teach mainly communication studies. So sometimes in my communication studies classes, I would share excerpts from my book if I find it applies to the particular lesson. And I also teach basic German and Spanish and French. So today, this evening, I'll read, in the first round, I'm going to read from That Time in Bogles. And then later on, I am going to read an excerpt from a work in progress that I have. I'm working on the sequel to White Spice, but don't expect me to call it White Spice 2. I don't think that would work as the name of a book. So let me read from That Time in Bogles. Anybody ready to go to Carriacou? Hopefully the sea is not rough as we journey by boat. So I'm going to read chapter 1, or from chapter 1, Voyage to Carriacou. About 10 miles northwest of the coast of St. Patrick's, Grenada, the wooden single-mast schooner Windward bullied its way through the Caribbean Sea on a northward course for Hillsborough, Carriacou. 18 passengers crowded the cabin that sat aft on the deck as the boat rocked and rolled on the agitated water. Daniel grabbed his bench tightly as 7.5-foot waves crashed over the bow of the green and white 80-foot vessel. 4 crewmen scampered about, trying to secure any loose cargo on deck. Daniel bemoaned having to travel to Grenada's sister isle at this time of the year. The seas always seemed to be roughest in March and April, but his mother had insisted that he spend his Easter vacation with his cousins in Carriacou. He groaned as Windward heaved over another wave. "Cuz, what happened to you?" His cousin Elijah sat calmly next to him and had to shout over the din of the boat's engine. "Ja, boy, how much longer we had to take this?" Sweat flowed profusely down Daniel's dark but currently ashen face. He looked like he was about to puke. Elijah laughed. "Boy, we're on the water for only 3 hours. Don't worry, there's only 4 more to go." Daniel stared at his older cousin in horror and sighed. He shook his head, silently thanking his mother for migrating to the mainland in early 1970. He couldn't imagine having to travel regularly by boat between Carriacou and Grenada. He thanked God that he was born on the mainland. Just then, windward crested a large wave, lurched forward, and heaved down towards the trough, slamming onto the bottom with a resounding thud. A few women screamed in terror. "Oh God!" one lady cried out. "Boat going downhill in the sea!" "Whoa, yo, yo!" another woman bawled. "Kick 'em, Jimmy, and tie the rope. I'm tired with this rough water." People often falsely accused the Caribbean's only submarine volcano, Kikem Jenny, which lay about 8 miles east of Windward's current position, of causing the turbulent seas between Grenada and Carriacou. Daniel heard retching, followed by the unmistakable splash of vomit on the wooden deck somewhere towards the front of the cabin. It was as if someone had suddenly opened a tap wide for 5 seconds. An acrid smell diffused among the sweating passengers almost immediately. A chain reaction ensued as other people reacted to the pungent odor of the liberated and undigested content of a human stomach. This proved to be Daniel's breaking point as he lunged forward from his bench and threw up. He was surprised to see evidence of the salt fish he had eaten for breakfast over 4 hours ago. Elijah gave him some water to drink. "Ja, how come you're not getting sick?" Daniel gasped. Elijah half sneered. "What do you, boy? Is a kayak. See water can make Carriacou people sick." Daniel gazed doubtfully at his cousin, then nodded towards the ladies on the other side of the cabin. "So them ladies over there is not kayak?" Elijah recognized the ladies as market vendors from Hillsborough. Boy, you're too stupid. Them ladies old already." Daniel shook his head. He wanted to stand on solid ground as soon as possible. His stomach was all over the place. The stench from the pools of vomit, as well as the fumes from the boat's engine, made matters worse for him. He put his head on his knees and hoped to sleep for the rest of the voyage. "Danny boy, are you going outside by the bow?" Elijah said. He stood up and began to undress. Daniel looked up with raised eyebrows. He scanned the cabin and noticed 2 other young men stripping to their underpants as well. A girl had already removed her shoes and dress and headed to the open deck wearing only her bra and panty, beaming like a victorious athlete. Elijah followed the trio. The boat continued to pitch and heave as its diesel engine and deployed sail propelled it slowly toward Carriacou at about 15 knots. Daniel could hear shouts and screams of glee coming from the front of the boat, but he dared not leave his seat to join the fun. The seaborne roller coaster continued to terrorize his stomach. A man lit a cigarette and started puffing smoke into the air. Daniel frowned. More retching and vomiting in the cabin. As Daniel leaned forward to bath once again, he grabbed his stomach and contorted his face. Nothing came up. His stomach was empty. Windward's pitching and yawing, as well as the sound of swirling wind outside, soon lulled him to sleep. His head dropped once more onto folded arms on his knees, and he dozed off. 3.5 hours later, Daniel woke up to his cousin vigorously shaking him. He stared up at Elijah's wet afro. "Cuz, we reach home," Elijah said. Thank you. So that was a short piece as the boys were heading to Carriacou on the rough sea. So it's at this juncture we're going to engage in a short discussion on what we've read, what we've heard, anything in general about literature, about reading, and all of that. In fact, I had a question for Julie. As we were reading a story there, I just wanted to ask if that was inspired by a true story. That kind of gave me some flashbacks to a certain period in Grenada's history.
Absolutely. Certainly inspired by a true story.
Yeah. So the October 1983 events.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gemma Belma went to convent in Grenville and she was killed on the fort
All right.
and buried in her school uniform.
Oh, okay. So they actually got to bury her. I recall I was at GBSS at the time, and I recall a schoolmate. He also died on the fort. In fact, his name is on the plaque that's on the fort, on the what do you call it, the parade square on the fort. And we just heard that it blew up. So quite a number of people were lost on that day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As I was reading the piece, Jeffrey, I kind of thought back to you and life in Carriacou, and perhaps your journey to Grenada from Carriacou. The first time what I asked a cousin this as well because I have cousins in Carriacou. Do you remember the first time you traveled from Carriacou to Grenada?
Yeah, I actually do, David. It was on the Adelaide B, an auxiliary schooner. Um, it was for a carnival in Grenada. So yes,
Okay.
I remember that time. So that was August.
Yeah, the Adelaide. In fact, that scene where the boys and there was one girl where they took stripped and they went outside to enjoy the waves and the water. I witnessed that scene on the Adelaide Bay one time I was traveling from Grenada to Carriacou. And that scene, actually, my cousin was one of the fellas who did that. So I was so shocked. I'm Grenadian, I'm not used to traveling on these boats. I'm scared for my cousin boys, there was water washing him away. But they were really enjoying the ride as the boat would go up and down the waves. You could hear them screaming and saying, like an actual roller coaster on land. So it's always fun for them, while it's terrifying for us, a lot of us on the mainland. Eh? I wanted to ask a question to Maureen. So your big island, small. So we know the small island supposed to be Grenada, big island, Canada. Although there were times I was tempted to think that the big island was supposed to be Grenada and the small island Carriacou. Is that when you wrote? Is that something that you thought people might misinterpret perhaps?
Not really, because the seasons of Big Island are the seasons of Canada. So there's
Right.
winter and and I think right at the beginning, North America to indigenous folks is called Turtle Island, and
Okay, I didn't know that. Turtle Island, the entire North American continent.
there's a piece there, an entire continent, not just Canada, but Canada and America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's good to know. Turtle Island, eh?
Yeah, so they were very distinctly, you knew it was a Caribbean island, you knew it was. And if
Yeah.
you were from Grenada, you would know it was Grenada.
Yeah, you can see that. Right.
Yeah.
I was often amused about how quickly they would get from Big Island to Small Island. So I'm thinking,
Yeah.
huh? Oh, we're there already?
Yeah, it's a constant back and forth. Well, the backstory is Small Island, and they're in Canada. They're in Big Island.
Right.
Yeah. Small Island. Yeah.
Hey, Colson, what's next for you on your writing journey? Are you working on any projects now? Do you have any intentions of publishing?
Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. I'm always writing. I'm trying to work on some short stories right now, and ultimately, I hope to produce an international film. That's my long-term goal. Um, it has been a challenge since I would, considering the fact that I would have lost or would have not gotten the rudimentaries when it comes to the English language. Ironically, it seems that I can speak English properly, but when it's time to write the English, then my flaws show up because since I'm a man, I have a problem with the periods, and I my work tend to be very comical at times, meaning I overuse the comma and stuff like that. So those are some of the flaws, and challenges that I have. But um, I guess it's nothing the mechanic cannot fix. If I'm the race car driver in this sense.
Yeah, man, the piece that you presented there addressed things that in society a lot of us are concerned about. So
Yep.
very current, very
Thank
current.
you. Thank you.
Somebody in the chat has written this: the pieces read by all bring the close proximity, the reality slash feels of us. Feels good to hear it read by the authors. Yeah. So it's always a pleasure to share. And in these times, we can't congregate too often. I think these are perhaps the best platform so far to reach a lot of people without necessarily leaving our homes. So these kinds of exercises will take place from time to time. All right. You all ready for round two? So back to Jeffrey.
Okay, what I'll do at this point is read from one of my books, Cheers of the Drum. It was published in 2017. So there's an election on the doorstep in the US, and according to who you listen to, it is the most important election. Of course, that was said before, and it will be said again. This piece was written the morning after the election in 2016. The election was November 8th, so this was written the morning of the 9th, when by that time everyone knew who had become the new president of the United States. So here goes Hail the Dawn. Now that the end has come with the triumph of the dawn, this is an invitation for all kayaks to run, come down, come back home and build skyscrapers, farm the land so we could export to Florida oranges, pumpkin, cassava, watermelon, and green plum. Long time she's been waiting for something like this to happen, from Magna Carta to the arrival of the Pilgrims to Pearl Harbor, the Cold War, Desert Storm, and Edward Snowden. Now the prophecy is revealing, hail the dawn and make America great again. Hear ye, this is the triumph of democracy. Power to the people and the right to choose. If Black Lives Matter, then my brother, what have you got to lose? Hail the trumpet sound and let it rebound as far as the graveyards of Canawan. We'll build the wall, turn things around. We will be the best pound for pound in Pasadena and Old San Juan. Enter the new era. She will be great again. All hail the dawn. And then I'll read this one from a book that was done in 2014, Poetic Duty 1.5. Now, I was in the UK at the time, and the event then was the death of Baroness Thatcher. And it was like wall-to-wall coverage. Her funeral was coming up in a few days' time. And as they got feedback from world leaders commenting on the Baroness and her politics, etc. One voice that was noticeably silent was that of Nelson Mandela, and the former South African president. So this is really a letter that is written to Mandela to elicit some sort of response from him. So it was written on the 9th of April. The Baroness had died the day before. Madiba, if I can imagine when you sat and walked in the yard in the summer, or in your den on Robin in winter, and Marley was singing songs of liberation, Vivian refused to join the rebellion to Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban. What do you think about the woman of iron, Madiba? You know, some say too easily you gave it away, Madiba. What do you say? Right, Natty, right. Natty trash it in a Zimbabwe. Go there, Dreddy, go there. Madi. For many, the Baroness simply chased them away. Taxes, houses, mining villages, poor rises, while Ma could get lost in Africa, benefit from an apartheid policy, and Sparrow, Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, the Black Stallion all had something to say, while Peter at the gate still waiting. Madiba, what do you say when Ian was king of Harare and Hilda, neither to Perron's country or the miners, had any word of apology? Peter, wait, I say, Peter, wait. Every man must decide his own destiny. Madiba, now as your time seems so near, do you have a word on Margaret, my dear, for the listening ear? Nelson, they celebrate in Northern Ireland, Glasgow and Brixton, like in Gaza City and Tehran. They lit images and let them burn. Even as the tributes pour in, Barack, Colin, and the warmongering man, but the world is waiting to hear from you, the moral voice of a generation, the Fosa King. So Madiba, what will you be saying?
You're great. Okay, so thank you, everybody. This is amazing. So I thought I would do is read a couple poems of mine, and then I was going to read a piece of a blog. I do a blog as well, and I was going to read a piece around stories when I was in the hospital with my dad. So I'll do the two poems, and then I'll do the blog piece just to give you, yeah, three different pieces. Let me see where I can get it. So the first poem is called People Tying People Up. People tying people up, he say, after we hear police go with a neighbor, I contemplate tie up. Can someone tie you up so bad you commit acts of atrocities like interfere with a child or chop a woman or accuse man of rape when they never touch anyone, or find yourself with a wound the size of your thigh that won't heal, or thief a set of money from a workplace you love, or slice the thumb off your cousin over a small disagreement, or marry the rum and divorce your wife, or run over someone on the road and flee the country, or throw words of death at your neighbor to find your own child dead the same day, or lash out at a coworker with words from your mouth you never heard before. Do we tie up ourselves without realizing we tie up? Do other people tie us up? Does intergenerational trauma tie us up? Are we absolved when we believe someone tie us up? Do our histories tie us up? Our ancestors, our stories, conscious and unconscious? Does the devil tie us up? Does evil tie us up? Does bad mind tie us up? When do we take responsibility for being tied up? Can we consciously tie up one another? Is tie up unconsciousness conscious? Can I sit with tie up? Contemplate tie up without an answer? Can I sit with whatever my neighbor did or did not do and not tie up my head with stories of tie up? And this is a piece that I wrote about my daughter who, well, I call it Multiple World Woman. So multiple world woman with pose and presence, fierce kindness and boundaries, walking through stories, your own and those spinning and spanning around you. Multiple world woman, Grenadian, Canadian, Irish, Italian origins, motherland, Africa. A book spread wide on a sea facing veranda, pages like waves riding shorelines. Multiple world woman from cinnamon tea skin to ancestral baby toes, curled, a shawl, cloak, jacket, a warrior backpack stitched of cocoa farmers, nutmeg gatherers, kitchen gardeners, teachers, protectors, lawyers and judges, carriers of sorrow and disappointment, resentment and grudges, artists and artisans, bakers and bell makers, survivors and thrivers through centuries of historical atrocities. Multiple world woman, your wings have sprung like the burnt sugar curls on your head, raising their soft fists in the air, preparing the wind for departure. And there we will be on the other side of yesterday, grateful you entered our lives so you could glide past us into the multiple meanings of you, multiple world woman. And the last piece I would love to read is a piece I wrote. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah. So I just wanted to read this piece because it has to do with some of the work that is being done here in Grenada under the Grenada Listening Project. And you can check it out on Facebook. And my dad died last year. And while he was in the hospital, I was in the hospital with him listening to people's stories. And I just thought it's just a short piece I thought I'd share around when we listen to people. Yeah, there's a real shared humanity of suffering. So I set up camp in the Ottawa General Hospital to be with my dad. Every day is different. I leave every night and arrive every morning, not knowing what the day will bring for my dad and for the other folks I meet each day. Some days I read to my dad from Alistair MacLeod's short stories. Other days I feed him strawberries and chocolate milk. Some days I sketch him as he sleeps. And other days I simply hang out while he struggles in and out of sleep. When I am not in his room, I am riding the elevator with the world, with humanity raw and tender, with a billion human stories in that small, miraculous contraption taking us up and down each day. I tell Dad he's not alone in his suffering, and I wonder if this is comforting to him or not. Sometimes I share with him some of the stories I am told and hear all around me, and sometimes I don't tell him. Like I didn't tell him about the young man I met who was in the hospital after a suicide attempt. And I don't tell him about the young woman speaking into the phone, describing the large jellyfish mass in her mother's belly that the doctors could do nothing about. I did tell him about the young woman outside the hospital doors vomiting and people walking right by her, and the purse I picked up and the cigarette she begged me to light and the smile she gave me as she took the first pull. I do tell him about the woman pulling her IV stand into the stairwell, and seconds later hearing Sinead O'Connor's "Nothing Compares to You" belting from underneath the stairwell door. My therapy, she tells me. I don't tell him about the cancer that has invaded her gallbladder and piece of her liver, and I don't tell him her mother's residential school story or the atrocious and tender survival stories of her own life. I do tell him about the long, strong hug we shared and the blessings we swapped. I do tell him about the Syrian elder woman walking the halls with a baby doll wedged in the crook of her arm, conversing out loud in her beautiful rolling tongue. I tell him how she stopped me and gave me 2 gentle slaps to my cheeks. I do tell him how honored and blessed I am to be here with him and with all the other folks here in the hospital, connected by the elevators we ride, the sitting rooms we wait, the stairwells we meet, the hallways we smile, the humanity we share. Thanks.
Hello, it's me again. Um, this piece is piece for and about women. I call it Eye Candy, and it goes like this. Whatever happened to trying to get to know me? It has only been 10 seconds, and already you know you love me and how much you want me. Seriously? Do you believe I am that easy? Well, I am sorry. I am not that kind of lady. But here is how it's going to be. I cannot stop you from saying whatever you want to me, but I am in total control of me. And I'll make damn sure that you wouldn't lay one finger on me. But you can go ahead, admire me. I am on display. But consider me to be that priceless piece of jewelry you want, but you only have the pleasure to see. I would never give you the chance to cheapen me, so you could boast to your friends about what you did to me. You would never see that part of my anatomy. What you can do is imagine how sweet or enjoyable I am and whether or not you would come back to me. The things you want to say to me, I probably know these things about me already. I am gorgeous. I have a fabulous body. I have sexy written all over me. But you would never get the opportunity to get me to drop that piece of my clothing down to my ankle when all you're looking for is just a little sample. Thank you. Did you guys get that?
Yes. Nice, strong piece, boy. Judy?
Thank you.
Okay, this is a part of a short story called Broken Bones and Blood. Rilar was leaving the grounds of the airport's orchard with a bag of stolen oranges when he saw a parked vehicle bouncing on its wheels. He crept closer. Inside was the popular Inspector Hoda kissing a young man. Inspector Hoda saw Rilar's shadow near the passenger side window. He pushed the young man from his lap and turned on the headlights. Rilar dropped the bag of oranges and ran away from the vehicle. Inspector Hoda quickly revved the engine and drove into Rilar. Inspector Hoda almost got away, except a security guard smoking a spliff on his brick saw when Rilar's body tumbled to the ground from the bonnet of the mud-splashed gold Jeep Wrangler. The security guard pushed his back off the trunk of the tamarind tree against which he was sitting. He ground the spliff into the red earth, rubbed Egyptian musk oil over his face and uniform, and popped a peppermint into his mouth. He tossed Rilar into his car and took him to the hospital. Rilar begged him not to call the police, but he did. Having failed the police entrance exam twice, the security guard was proud to tell the 911 dispatcher PB-71 fled the scene. Rilar wouldn't talk when he got to the hospital. A nurse from his village was on duty and she gave his name and address. "I can't imagine what you do to get that," she said as she wiped his bloody leg. The security guard left Rilar and headed down the stairs. A voice echoed at the bottom of the stairwell. "They try to kill me, child. They don't want to see nothing good for my family, but I don't take in this one lying down, you know. Somebody go pay." It was Loen, Rilar's mother. She was panting, heaving herself up the stairs, her wide hips filling the space. The guard jammed himself against the wall. "The boy is your son?" he asked. Yes. Is you the one they say help him?" "Thank you, my boy. God bless you. You hear? God bless you." "It's no problem. I'm going back to work, but I'll come again." "Thank you, you hear? The person who do this, they're going to pay. Trust me, he go pay." Loen made the sign of the cross and entered the male surgical ward as mournful wailing filled the air. A man had just died. By then, Rilar's leg had been encased in plaster of Paris. He turned his face to the wall as Loen waddled to his bed. 2 weeks later, Inspector Hoda walked up the courthouse steps to face Loen, arms folded, legs spread apart, her high round bottom riding against the scratched wooden door as she tapped her foot on the ground. "Good morning, miss. Please excuse me," he greeted her. "Excuse you? He don't have no excuse for you. You is a beast. You tried to kill me son and you asking for excuse?" She sucked her teeth. "I don't understand how a policeman could nearly kill somebody and still get bail. You need to be in jail." "Ma'am, we're in the right place to clear this up. The magistrate is handling the case." Same time, The court clerk bounced up the stairs with a bundle of files cradled in her arms. Lowen stepped aside and she and Hoda followed the clerk inside the courthouse. Lowen looked at her phone. Rilar hadn't called and his number was unavailable. She held her face in her cool, sweaty palms before wiping them on her skirt. She squeezed her arms between her thighs and looked toward the door. Back at his girlfriend's house, Rilar set down his crutches and sat on a stone in the shade of a breadfruit tree in the backyard. Crows and doves pecked at the rice he had scattered on the ground. Some were perched on the white clothes on the line. His girlfriend Annie would have a fit when she got home to find bird footprints on a blouse, bird shit splattered on the back of a dress. A policeman had hit him and driven away, so he had a case. But he wondered, would he have to explain that in addition to stealing, he scoped out deserted areas for vehicles with the familiar bounce of intimate bodies, that he had been rubbing the hardness in his pants when he saw Inspector Hoda softly kiss another man's high cheekbones? Rilar drew circles with a piece of charcoal on the cast on his leg. He had watched before and gotten away, women laughing and talking in the river, rubbing soapy rags between their legs, a girl pouring water over her budding breast in a zinc galvanized bathroom outside her home. He had walked in on Annie's roommate one night. She slept naked. She had screamed. He said he sleepwalked. Annie called his mother, who backed him up. The girl moved out. This time he could have been killed. What would he say? Lowen had said nothing. The day her father pushed her against the kitchen counter, bent her head over the sink and entered her from behind, Rilar was born. She woke up one night with her father pulling down her panties. She kicked her legs and struggled under his weight as Rilar gurgled on the bed beside her. Lando was born. People talked. She liked what he did to her, they said. How could she go back a second time? Lowen's father was found dead in a muddy drain one wet morning, brown water gushing from beneath his body. Some said drunkenness had tripped him and he had hit his head on a stone. Lowen hoped someone had smashed his head in. That was an excerpt from a short story. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. That's some powerful pieces. Wow. So I'm going to read an excerpt from my work in progress. So this is from the first draft of the White Spice sequel. And in White Spice, the fictitious drug interdiction agency tracked drug traffickers, cocaine traffickers. In this sequel, the agency will have to deal with drug use, not just trafficking, but drug use in the island, or on the island. So this scene takes place in the fictitious Grenada Boys High School. 28 male adolescent voices repeated the short sentences in French, trying to pronounce words exactly as Madame Marichaux read them. Domani sat in the back row of the classroom, staring at the French teacher's lips as he mouthed the words. No sound came from his throat. He loved the French language and took every opportunity to practice. However, lately he had been losing interest in attending the classes. He tried hard to pay attention only because of Madame Marichaux. His eyes roamed over her full lips, which she had plastered with cherry red lipstick. He licked his own lips. As he repeated another sentence, he inspected her wide hips and let his gaze drop to trace her path slowly down her legs to her high heels. He groaned. A boy sitting close by stared at him for a few seconds. He voiced the French words louder. Domani picked up a soft notebook and began to use it as a fan. Sweat ran down his forehead and into his eyes. He wiped it off with a finger, then flicked the perspiration to the floor. Another boy glared at him. He dropped his head to his desk, resting a cheek flat on the wooden surface so that he could still follow the teacher. Madame Marichaux gestured at him with an upward-facing open palm, and he sat back up. She nodded and smiled at him. He smiled faintly, making a conscious effort not to open his mouth. Miss real nicely, he thought. The 15-year-old student squeezed his legs together and shuddered. He raised a hand. Miss, I could go to the toilet, please? Madame Marichaux frowned. The class stopped speaking. She inhaled before blowing air through her nose, then answered in French accented English. But we are in the middle of the class, no? Can you not wait until we are finished? Miss, my belly hurting me bad. I had porridge for breakfast this morning. Scattered laughter echoed in the room. Okay, bon, you can go. The man stood up. Boy, what going on with your pants there? Rodney pointed to the front of the man's gray school trousers. The man stooped and rushed out of the room amid laughter and a few snickers. Half a minute later, he stormed into the washroom and headed for a stall at the far end. He pulled out a transparent plastic bag that contained several translucent crystal-like candies. He grinned, exposing several rotting teeth. With trembling hands, he extracted 2 crystals and popped them into his mouth before sitting on the toilet. Domani's head rolled back, and he stared at the roof with open mouth and glazed eyes. His mouth spread into a smile as he started to move his head from side to side. He felt a rush of energy as his heart beat faster. A sheen of sweat appeared on his forearms. I'm ready for French now, he said out loud. Romani looked at the bag of crystals and pondered taking another one. He decided against it. He had bought the small parcel 2 months ago and needed to ration it for another week. The boy stepped to a face basin to wash his face. He rubbed wet hands over his entire head. Whoa, he shouted. He sprinted up to his class and entered a silent room as his classmates focused on a written task. Madame Lucille Marichaux sat at the teacher's desk on the raised platform in Form 3B, pleased with herself that the class had participated actively in today's lesson. Often, they would be reluctant to say anything in French after her initial Bonjour mes étudiants. She thought that the video she played had grabbed the interest in the lesson on shopping for clothes. She looked out onto the class as all heads faced down. She smiled. Her smile vanished as Domani rushed into the room. Bonjour, miss, the boy greeted his teacher. Salut, Domani. Madame Marichaux watched the teenager slip between desks to get to his seat. She cocked her head to one side as she observed his movement. Maybe something is wrong with his legs, she wondered. Did he lose weight? She made a mental note to talk to the principal about him. After letting the students do a workbook exercise for 10 minutes, Madame Marichaux stood up. Mes étudiants, I will stick some picture of clothes on the whiteboard. I will call on students to come to write the name of the item in French. Comprenez-vous? Oui, madame. Madame Marichaux grabbed 20 cut-out pictures of clothing and began to stick them on the whiteboard. She wrote a number by each image. As she got to number 6, she heard gasps and stifled giggles. Before she could turn around, she felt a slim body jamming into her bottom, pushing her into the board. She froze, opened her eyes wide, and gasped loudly before swinging around. Her vision blurred, and her right fist moved from beside her hip in an arcing uppercut that caught the disrespectful student under his chin. Little boy, what the ass wrong with you? The French teacher shouted. She only recognized Domani as his body flew through the air and crashed into the desks in the third row. The boy landed on the concrete floor with a thud. Dead silence covered the classroom. Every boy stared at the teacher as if she were an alien. Ah, Miss from Grenada? Somebody whispered. None of the boys had ever considered that Madame Marichou was Grenadian, despite having studied French with her for 3 years. "You're dead here today," Madame Marichou continued to rage. She scattered desk aside to get to the motionless Domani. "Miss, he dead already?" a squeaky voice said. Madame Marichou now stood above Domani, whose shut eyes gave her second thoughts about stomping on his midsection, the area that had so violated her. She picked up the nearest chair to smash it onto the boy and whirled around when she felt someone grab it from behind. She found herself glaring into the bearded face of Mr. Felix. She relaxed her grip on the chair when she recognized the vice principal, then broke out in a sob. She hurried out of the room, leaving the shocked students staring at each other and at an unconscious Domani. Mr. Felix sent a boy to get the school nurse, then took charge of the class. Thank you. So that was an excerpt from the work in progress, the White Spice sequel. So again, that one deals with drugs, this time drug use. Thank you everybody for sharing. Any thoughts by anyone on what we've heard today, what we shared? Judy had said in the chat to Carlson that his last piece was an empowering tribute to women. Would you like to elaborate, Judy?
Well, there were other things that I wanted to say, but I realized that I couldn't type in the chat and listen at the same time. So I said, well, maybe I'll wait until after and maybe just send my comments in an email. But I thought I like the diversity of everyone's work, what's fiction and what's personal, what is like contemplative of issues in society and the things that, we are going through in life. I just like that range of, things that come up in the writing.
Yeah, I would love to echo that. It's such diverse stories and poetry, and all of us really touching on social issues and really hard stories, tough stories. And I love like the tribute, historically tribute to the revolution through poems and through it was really something. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming along, for participating. We don't know too much about the literary scene in Carriacou. Jeffrey, I was wondering if you could give us a take on what's happening in Carriacou, who some of the authors or the writers are, and what they write about and so on.
Okay, so thanks, David. And just to say, for me, I mean, whenever writers, authors get together, it can only be a good thing. So that's period, So that's a fantastic thing through and through. Carriacou, there are those I know and those I don't know too well. So let me talk about those that I know. The ones that are well known, people like Kristen David, who is an historian. She is a poet as well. Kristen has written extensively. She has a background in education, and she's published at least 2 books, but with lots of manuscripts. She's the go-to person when people want to study Carriacou's history, especially as it relates to things like the Big Drum Nation dance. So that's Kristen David. I would say she's the elder statesman, although it doesn't apply, but the elder poet laureate, I would say, more appropriately, in Carriacou. Then you have, from Windward, you have Mr. Terence McFarlane. He's also a poet. He's also been writing for a number of years, and he has a couple books as well published. What we try to do in Karaku, there's an annual event that's been running for 2 years. This would be the third year, but with COVID and all that's happening, it's unlikely that we would host it as it's been hosted for the past 2 years. Kaya and the Bagadia. And part of the drive is really to put a spotlight on Karakuan literature, on Karakuan art in general, but literature as we're talking about that. And so writers and authors are invited to come to showcase their works and to perform as well. So that's just a little thing about what's happening in Karakuan.
Yeah, thank you. There, I saw on Facebook at some point somebody was promoting to me, it looked like a new young writer, a young lady from Caracas. I forgot her name though. I think she was into poetry, and I just can't think of her name though. So it's always good to see young writers on the scene, you know, doing their poetry or the prose, the fiction, the tributes, doing research really in general to get the writing going.
I also want to say something. While you were both talking about Karakou, I just remembered and felt like I should say, big up to Mr. Winston Fleury, who passed away earlier this year. Mr. Fleury was a huge repository of stories about Karakou, about Africa, about the culture, historical figures. And he was one of my teachers and friend. And I really appreciate all the stories that he
Paula,
shared with me. And
Paula,
he
I'm
loved
sorry.
poetry, like classical poetry, and he would always be reciting poetry. You know, talking about his days in at GBSS. You know, um, doing speeches and writing, etc. So that just came up for me, and I wanted to share it. Thanks.
So Judy, what was some of the you can't tell us all, but what were some of the stories that Mr. Fleury shared with you? What
I know
were
he used to talk about Sugar Adams and all the women who danced and tell me about his family and the cows that his father had and you know about Temne women and Fedon and Christophe and Kojo. It was just great, you know, to listen to him.
Colson, you're on mute?
Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to say thank you so very much for being given the opportunity to be a part of this. Honestly, you guys have accomplished so much already, and I feel very proud that we're Grenadians and affiliated to Grenada and to be able to produce such quality. It's a real pleasure to be able to sit here and to listen to people who can, you know, help other people find a voice, especially not knowing how they would be accepted after sharing some personal stories and stuff like that. It's uh, a really huge thing because sometimes somebody just want to get some stuff out and they don't know how to get it out. And through channels like this, you know, they can have a voice to know that they're not the only ones affected by the things they're affected by. And at the end of the day, we're all part of a giant jigsaw puzzle and we fit together to make a whole. So it's a wonderful opportunity. And me barely scraping through my high school or secondary um, educational level and not even going to college, it's a real pleasure for me to be a part of this movement, if I should call it that. And I hope we continue to have things like this and let those issues be heard. because if you imagine what the world would be like without writers, then it would be bleak. Stories would never be told. You would not hear news, and things cannot be passed on from generation to generation. So it's a very important thing that is happening here right now, and I really do hope it's um, not just the second and the last, but a lot more of it to come. I'm hoping I'm making sense with what I'm saying, and I'm not just rambling on, but I'm very much grateful to be a part of this, and thank you to everyone who commented about the things I wrote about. It's very encouraging, and I hope to continue. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you, Colson. Thank you for getting that courage to join us and for sharing your writing. You always tell me it's quite a journey. So it's a big step to share with the world, you know. So nice, nice. And of course, thank you to everybody, the entire panel. And this is the second one that I've put on, but we're gonna do more. We have so many diverse writers or writers who write about so many different issues in Grenada. I just want to try to get everybody that exposure. People could get a sample of our stuff or writing, and even find us wherever we are. If we've published, find our work. We have stuff on Amazon in Grenada. We have, well, if you're in Grenada, you could find us somehow. Grenada is not that big. The state of Grenada is not that big. You find us. Some of us have our things on our books on Amazon. Like my 3 books are on Amazon. 2 of them are on Kindle. I don't have White Spice on Kindle. I'm going to put it back. I'm going to put it back um, in a few months. But the others are also are on Kindle, and all of them are in paperback. So you could find our works anywhere. Just give us a call or find us somehow. Um, we are on. Some of us are on Facebook or some other social media. Maybe you might know someone who knows us. That's how our society is. Uh, Thank you for everybody. I see we had viewers in Canada as well as in Grenada. So thank you everybody who viewed the readings. We're gonna have another one, another panel. We're gonna mix it up, poetry and prose, maybe even research papers and things like that. Because a lot of Grenadians do research. Hence, of course, the need for our public library. We need a library back. Wait, Jeffrey, what's the library situation in Carriacou? Is there a functioning public library was it in Hillsborough? It used to be.
It is, yes. Main Street is
So
where
it's
the
functioning.
old police station used to be.
Mm,
What is now the multi-purpose center. On the bottom floor is the public library.
okay. Oh, okay, okay. Nice, nice. All right. Any closing words by anybody else?
Well, thanks, David, for putting this together and for allowing us the opportunity to share our work and to get to know each other. And I look forward to knowing more Grenadians and their work through your platform,
Mhm.
through this platform.
Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you. And I just realized, I think it was last week, that within the last 5 to 6 years, more Grenadians have published than in the previous 20 years. So we're publishing, man. We're pushing a lot of work. So thanks again for coming along, and we're gonna do this again. We're gonna do this again. This is not the last, viewers, and all the audience. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back in about a month or so. Maybe with other writers, so you're gonna get to meet other writers. We're going to rotate. We're gonna have a cycle. All right. So goodbye, everyone. We're gonna goodbye, team.